Welcome into Deep Waters here on ProBox TV. Monday through Friday, we bring you all your boxing news. Like, subscribe, join us every single day. We break it down here in studio. Jimmy Smith alongside Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, Showtime, Sean Porter joining us via Zoom. And what is the news today? It is the gift that keeps on giving. What do I mean? Oscar De La Hoya, of course, flexing his muscles, not only as a former champion, but as a promoter with his Clapback Thursday, getting back at what he calls his haters, but he has some points. We'll let the man speak for himself.
Hey, what's up, Clapback Thursdays? Let's start with the WBC and ordering Shakur Stevenson versus William Cepeda. Ordering? What does that mean? They ordered Canelo Benavidez like 3 years ago, and that hasn't happened. William will make his decision very soon, and he has 3 other options. Shakur Stevenson, you're a free agent, you're a great fighter, great talent, but not for me. I believe that when somebody says you're not fighting for the public, I cannot promote. Now, there's a lot of rumors going on that the Saudis are going to take over boxing and buy out every single promoter. Well, guess what? I haven't been approached, so don't believe everything you read. Clapback Thursdays.
Paulie, this is something you've been saying for a long time. I see the smile on your face right now as we're talking about it. What does it mean? Yeah, we're ordering you to take on so-and-so. You talk about it all the time. The sanctioning bodies can't make somebody fight, and Canelo has avoided Benavidez, as you have said, for years. What are your thoughts on Oscar De La Hoya's clapback call-out?
First of all, when Oscar tweets or posts, right, I'm tuned in. I'm one of the ones that's tuning in, guys. I know sometimes it's a train wreck, but you know what?
One of my favorite follows.
Yeah. One of the best follows. Yeah. Oscar, I'm all for Clapback Thursdays. I want to clapback Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I want to hear all the clapbacks. I'm tuned in. I'm hooked.
Just like Deep Waters, every day.
Yeah. Yep. Every single day. As far as he's got some points. First of all, with the WBC, he's definitely got a point.
Right.
He's got a point with the WBC. That doesn't mean anything at all. That they said that you're a mandatory. They have to actually announce that negotiations must commence by a certain deadline, or there will be a purse bid. That's usually how it works. Yeah. You don't just say, what did they say? What did he say they said?
Order.
Yeah, that and $3 will get you on the train in New York City. Then just ask Benavidez with Canelo. You have to actually order negotiations to commence with a deadline being a certain so-and-so date where there would be a purse bid if the negotiations didn't come to fruition and result in a negotiation of a fight happening. That's how it happens. That's how it's supposed to happen. If the sanctioning body doesn't order that, it doesn't mean anything. Like I said, that and $3 will get you on the bus in New York City, but you want to get a title shot. That's not going to happen. So let's see if the WBC is actually going to do that, or if they're going to just make headlines the way they did with Canelo Benavidez, which means absolutely nothing.
Chris, one of the ways we talked about it a couple days ago, we talked about trash talk between fighters, right? And one of the things we said is the best trash talkers had a ring of truth. Even if you didn't like the guy, you'd go, he's got kind of a solid point. Is that the allure to this clapback attitude of Oscar De La Hoya? He's not wrong with the things he says. Maybe he says it in a harsh way, but he's not wrong.
Oh, I love Oscar. I have always been a big fan. I love this new version of Oscar, the promoter of Oscar, who still acts like a fighter a little bit. He still has that little bit of twinge to him. You know, the clapback is phenomenal and very, very smart. And yeah, Jimmy, to your point, absolutely. He made a lot of sense in what he was saying there. And he does make a lot of sense in, even though he's got some veiled ideas about what he's presenting, but he always makes a lot of sense. At least 2 out of 3 of those, I thought he made a lot of sense. The Shakur Stevenson one.
Yeah, I don't agree with Shakur Stevenson because you wouldn't have met with him if you didn't want to promote him.
Yeah,
you met with him.
I want to harp on that one because
we'll discuss that in a minute.
You probably got the gist that he wasn't going to sign.
We'll discuss Shakur.
Go ahead, finish up.
We'll go to that one. But yeah, Jimmy, to your point, there's a lot of truth in what he was saying, and I think this is a great idea for him to do this Clapback Thursdays. Keep it going. I think it's excellent. But listen, Oscar's been around this business in every facet for 20 plus years, 30 plus, 40 plus years at this point. He's been one of the major promoters for a long time now. He's really earned his stripes in that sense. He does a great job. He has, his stable isn't quite as filled out as a Bob Arum per se, but it's Bob Arum, of course. But he's still alive and well. And even when he said about Turkey, he's like, well, if this guy's going to come and change the whole game, he's going to buy out I'm one of the major promoters in the game. They didn't talk to me, so obviously that's not happening. So I also like that he's keeping it real. He's keeping it 100 with the fans. He's like, this is what's going on. This is the stuff that I see on my side. You guys should know too. So, Oscar, keep it going, bro.
Good stuff, Oscar. Showtime, when I go to you about it, when he talks about the nuts and bolts of Zepeda has other options other than Shakur Stevenson, a lot of this division looks like Lomachenko tank is going to be later this year. When you talk about options for Zepeda, what do you think he's talking about? Is he just promoting, or does he have more options than just Shakur Stevenson?
I want to, because everybody talked about the clapback thing. I want to.
Oh, please.
This is what I want to say about it. Stay consistent, okay? Don't when it's beneficial to you, raise your voice and say things, but then when it's not beneficial to you and something's not going the way you needed to go, you're gonna play hush hush. There's a lot of truths that need to be spoken in this sport. He told some truths right there in that clapback, and it's like you got to keep that going. Keep telling these truths. You're gonna open it up. You're gonna show yourself to be a truth teller. Keep it going. You know what I mean?
That's all promoters.
Exactly.
I think you're asking for too much.
But shoot, let me say my piece, damn it. No, but the other side of that is he's right. At the end of the day, the sanctioning bodies don't control the belt as much as they would like to. There are moments where the promoters can say, well, hey, this is what we want to petition and this is what we think needs to happen. And if it's substantial enough, they can make that happen that way. There you go. I'm going to tell the truth. The truth is, while the sanctioning bodies want to control the belts and control who fights, when they fight, how they fight, and how much money even gets made, it's not always up to them. And it's not always up to the promotional team, the promotional entity to determine exactly who's fighting, who, when, and where. But in this case right here, it seems like William Zepeda does have more opportunities than just fighting Shakur Stevenson as his mandatory. As I've been told, I'll tell one more truth by the WBC president himself. They make a mandatory so that otherwise a fighter, they try to identify a fighter who would not be able to fight for the title. And that's where they come up with this mandatory thing. This mandatory thing is, well, this guy isn't exactly in line to fight for the title, but he may never get there, so we're going to plug him into this mandatory position. That way he's guaranteed to fight. At this point, it doesn't sound like Shakur is that mandatory, but even when you have a mandatory, the money will get you right around it.
That is the question. Shakur Stevenson.
So why is it called a mandatory?
Exactly, but we'll discuss the future of Shakur Stevenson. If it's not with Oscar De La Hoya, is De La Hoya using Shakur Stevenson as an excuse, his words as a way to not sign him? We'll discuss it right after this.
Wednesday Night Fights. Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, July 31st, ProBox veterans Alberto Palmetta and Jesus Sriracha return to battle it out in the main event.
Over 500,000 people, can't be wrong. That's the number on all of our platforms checking out our Wednesday Night Fights, and you'll see why they are tuning in July 31st, Argentina versus Mexico in what is going to be an action-packed main event. Bring your smocks. I know we will. Ringside. Right now, in studio, we are discussing the future of Shakur Stevenson after Oscar De La Hoya, in his clapback Thursday, said he will not promote him because he says he doesn't fight for the fans. Chris, Paulie's always talking about how it's convenient for Canelo Alvarez to say, I'm not going to fight a guy. He disrespected me, when he doesn't want to fight the guy anyway. Is that something of it where Shakur Stevenson's words are used as an excuse by Oscar De La Hoya? He doesn't want to promote him anyway. What's your thought on it?
Well, I mean, last week he was having meetings with them to sign him, and he was still talking about how fantastic a talent he is. And even in this video said how talented that Shakur is. So it seems to me that Shakur and De La Hoya couldn't really come to an agreement. Obviously the Zepeda fight makes a lot of sense. Shakur said it himself. That's the kind of guy that would make me really shine, which we agree with. But if he's going to get with Golden Boy for a long-term deal, it kind of pigeonholes him away from those other champions. It'll be very, very difficult to make those other fights happen. Yeah, you got that Zepeda fight, but guess what? You have the title. You don't have to go there. So it just seems to me like Oscar De La Hoya couldn't close that deal because of whatever Shakur had in mind for his future. And now Oscar's saying like, no, I wouldn't want to promote him anyway. He's not a fan-friendly guy. He doesn't care about the fans. So that's not the kind of guy I want to promote. Yeah. I'm calling BS on that one. I think Oscar would have signed him no matter what if he could. But it just seems like Shakur's got other plans, which I don't disagree with Shakur on that stance.
When you look at it that way, do you like Paulie all by itself? Not necessarily Oscar De La Hoya's reaction to it, but the words of Shakur Stevenson, I don't fight for the fans, I fight for myself. Do you think the words are in some sense harmful for his popularity and his brand? What's your thought?
It can be, but in another show I brought up Rayo Valenzuela, who fights for the fans constantly, takes on the toughest possible opposition, doesn't always win, and even though he's always exciting, doesn't get rewarded that way. Shakur Stevenson fighting in the boring style is being rewarded way more than Rayo Valenzuela, who's fighting in a more exciting style. So you got to make it make sense, otherwise it's all just words. When it comes to Oscar, I'm going to piggyback off the champ's points. It's not that Oscar doesn't want to promote Shakur Stevenson. It's that Oscar wanted to promote Shakur Stevenson, took the meeting with him, and probably didn't get a call back or didn't get any confirmation of anything going forward. And so he realizes that probably Shakur is going in another direction. So before the announcement is made that Shakur is going to go in another direction, when he announces who he's signed with, Oscar say, we'll beat him to the punch there. We're going to enjoy Clapback Thursday, both when we agree with it and disagree with it. But, it's still going to be fun to go through Clapback Thursday if Oscar makes sure he's on every Thursday, because now we're all going to tune in on this. But it also goes in more on the point of what the champ Sean was saying, where, be consistent when it benefits you and when it doesn't benefit you. But I don't think Oscar would have said on Clapback Thursday, I was looking to sign Shakur Stevenson, but he didn't return my calls anymore. Right. I don't know if that way he would have done that. Even though that's probably something to that effect is probably why he's is what really happened, or something close to that, and this is why he's probably trying to make like he don't want to promote him anyway.
Right. It's the classic, you can't fire me, I quit, right? Showtime's this idea that the promoter who can't sign Shakur Stevenson says, I don't want Shakur Stevenson. What are your thoughts on this? You call him a truth teller, and he is to some degree, but he's still a promoter. That's the other side of this Clapback Thursday. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who I feel like you just have to keep it real with everyone. You be as transparent as possible. And if it's not that match made in heaven, it's going to be told eventually. And who are people going to believe? You're being the promoter, and we know promoters to be liars. We know promoters to hide things from fighters. List goes on. Eventually, Shakur is going to come out and say whatever he wants to say about it, and it's probably going to trump whatever Oscar says. So if I were Oscar, I would have just kept it real from the jump and told it like it was. That being said, though, when he looks at Shakur and he says, well, I'm not signing a fighter that says I don't fight for the fans, he has some, it's kind of substantial, because he's right. Someone should be in Shakur's ear telling him that certain things he can and cannot say. He went back at the fans because they booed him. You got to look at yourself. You got to look at the fact that you got booed in your hometown, and you can't throw that back at them and say, well, I don't fight for y'all. Well, you do. You wouldn't be in the ring if you didn't, because to me, this is maybe just me, but if the fans weren't there and I was still getting the same money, I don't know if that fight would mean as much to me. It always meant something for me to have the arena full when I was in the ring. You know what I mean? So there is a small point there from Oscar, but all in all, I got a feeling it wasn't going to work out, and Oscar decided to make that jump first.
Well, it's one of those things where you look at the skills, you look at the ability. Oscar De La Hoya says he's one of the best in the world. It's a matter of pleasing the fans. A fighter whose skills definitely suspect at this point. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., his future and his past, his legacy when we come back. For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel. Welcome back into Deep Waters. Well, what's in a name? Well, when your name is Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., it means a whole lot. This is a former world champion who has fallen from grace, to say the least, in the eyes of most boxing fans. He's fighting on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Platinum Mike Perry. He's took on Uriah Hall. If you don't know a lot of combat sports, Uriah Hall, UFC guy, decent hands, known more for his scary kicks, even in his MMA career. But this is a guy who is taking a step down, but it may be setting up a future fight with Jake Paul should Mike Tyson not work out. That is the word around the campfire in the combat sports community. First question I want to get out of the way, because Chris, you and I were discussing it before the show. Is Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. the worst name in boxing history. And what I mean by this, it's a name most people would recognize, a lot of casual fans, at least because his dad knew who he was, but he didn't deliver when it came to big fights, and his tendency to quit, which his dad never did. What are your thoughts on it? Well, I know it's harsh words, I understand. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, let's be honest.
Yeah.
The only reason he's getting any opportunities anymore is because of his name. Yeah. So he did not come through. Yeah, he won a world title. He won a world title. He beat Andy Lee, who's a very, very good fighter a number of years ago. He had a good, decent showing in the last round against Sergio Martinez, scoring a knockdown there in a fight that he was completely routed. And then just abysmal performances against Canelo Alvarez. And then since then, losing to very unheralded guys, and then even losing to Anderson Silva. I called that fight. I called that fight in Mexico, where his father, at 60 years old, was fighting in the main event, and he put in more work than his son did at that time. So at this point, he's literally fighting on the name alone, and hasn't done anything meaningful in 5, 6, 7 years. So the fact that he's fighting on an undercard of Jake Paul, trying to get on a Jake Paul fight, I think it speaks volumes to where he's at in his career.
It's one of those things, Paulie, it isn't just the losses, but how he has lost in the latter stage of his career. Had he walked away, let's say after the Canelo fight, and that was it, finished, okay, bad finish to his career, but wouldn't have detracted from it the way he did, the way he fought Danny Jacobs, because the Fanfara fight, things like that took away from whatever legacy he had. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, this guy sucked. This guy was one of the worst guys. It may be the worst guy to ever hold a world title. And I'm going to tell you, you can pinpoint and say, this guy was worse, this guy was worse. This guy was so bad. This guy lost 7 or 8 other fights in his career on the come-up, and they gave him the decisions to where if he would have, the decision, and the only reason they gave him decisions is because of who his father was, that if he would have been treated like a normal person fighting those fights, he wouldn't have even come within a sniff of a world championship. Wouldn't have even come within a sniff of a regional title. This guy was horrible. And then, yeah, he came up. He managed to get some decent wins at a certain point, but Andy Lee was also very, very inconsistent in his career and didn't really get momentum going until after that loss. Still not an excuse. I mean,
he still smashed Andy.
It's one of those where you have to acknowledge it, but he wouldn't have even been in the Andy Lee fight if he hadn't gotten those 7 or 8 gifts. There's literally 7 or 8 gifts. Carlos Molina beat him twice. Troy Rowland beat him. Yep. I mean, off the top of my head, Brian Vera beat him. All guys that's off the top of my head, let alone other fights. I mean, this guy had a bunch of fights that he didn't win, and they just kept giving him decisions to get him to the. Then, when he gets a chance to fight for the WBC mandatory, because the only reason he's WBC mandatory is because his father and Suleiman are buddies, HBO did not want to accept that fight with Sergio Martinez because it was such a mismatch on paper. They didn't want to accept that mandatory. So Sergio, because he can't get this fight on, Sebastian Zbik, sorry. Sebastian Zbik was the mandatory, not Chavez Jr. HBO doesn't want to do this big fight with Sergio Martinez. Sergio, where's he going to defend the title with Zbik for no money? He's been beating guys like Kelly Pavlik. How's he going to fight Zbik for no money? No major networks buying it. So he has to vacate the WBC title. In comes the WBC implementing Chavez Jr. and Zbik. Zbik was horrible. Zbik was horrible himself. All European regional fighter there. Yep. Chavez beats Zbik and becomes the champion. And now they can make Sergio and Chavez Jr. And
Sergio embarrassed him for 11 rounds.
I don't know how much we can talk. In Sicilian, we call it a broken ass. When you so lucky. No, I'm seriously. That's the terminology. Pause. But right. It's when you're so lucky. Like we use a lot in soccer, where this guy just randomly hits the ball and it somehow goes into a crazy goal. This guy. I'm speaking all these things. I'm speaking about him. How horrible he is. This that. And then in round 12, this guy almost beats a guy on the pound-for-pound list is Sergio Martinez, who busts his knee on the knockdown. Can you imagine what a disaster? This guy is the lowest hanging fruit. Anybody who wants to come in and take on a boxer and make some money just picks him.
Who says I beat a world champion?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the problem. It makes boxing look bad. Right. It makes boxing look bad. WBC should be ashamed of himself that this guy ever represented him. They ever positioned him because he continues to make boxing look bad because now the random guy at the corner wants to fight for an ex-world champion. He might beat him. Right. He might beat Chavez. Anybody might beat Chavez Jr. And it makes us look bad because it's not that hard to win world titles. That guy won a world title. That guy sucks. That's the problem. Nobody has had it this way. Nobody. Even the kids of ex-world champions have not had it as easy as this particular guy. There were kids of ex-world champions who did not win world titles that were better than this guy. But this guy just got the yellow brick road paved by the WBC. And the judges, it's wild. If you look at his record, there are literally 7, 8, maybe 6, 7 fights that he didn't win on the come-up, he wouldn't have even been
And
anywhere
Paulie,
near the
Paulie,
rankings. I gotta stop. Champ, go.
Showtime, you gotta go, man.
All that being said, that's why he's on the undercard of Jake Paul's
Right.
fight.
Yeah.
He's going to be the guy who gets in the ring with Jake Paul so that Jake Paul can say, oh, I got in the ring with a real boxer and I beat him. Well, you're getting in the ring with one of the worst in the world, but because that guy had a world title and has the name,
Makes
it
us
makes
look bad,
sense for
though.
this to happen.
Makes us look bad.
It's going to make us, this is what's coming.
Yeah.
And boxing did it to itself.
Well, we call it failing up, right? Like guys are bad at the right time, so they get opportunities. You've seen it in other sports, but in boxing, it does tend to happen. You guys talk about it all the time.
He
You
got
want to
up
look
because
good,
of
but you
his
don't look
father's
great.
name.
Right? Yeah.
And it wasn't right place, right time. It was
His
right
dad's
name,
name, right?
right dad. He picked his parents.
And the Mexican fans buy the fights. I don't know. Maybe his brother Omar wasn't as popular. Maybe because he's named the same exact name as his father. I don't know, bro. Because Mexican boxing fans are among the best in the world. Typically, pretty knowledgeable. You guys aren't ashamed of yourselves? You buy a million pay-per-views, this guy fights?
It's the
you
fact
continue
that
to make this guy famous and he gets these opportunities?
his father was godly. Godly.
I get it.
Yeah.
He's not,
He's
though.
godly.
Because then when he fights, yo, I was at the fanfare fight. I worked the fanfare fight. I worked the
This is what I
fanfare
remember
fight.
about Junior.
Go ahead.
I would be around Mexicans, and they would literally have their fingers crossed that he looks better. And they went from having their fingers crossed that he looked better to just giving up on him. Like, oh no, we don't.
We're giving up on them. We're giving up on them. They got a choice, and they make like they got no choice. They still support this guy. I was at the fanfare fight. First they're cheering him on, going crazy, and Carson. Then he quits. They're throwing beers all over the place. I got hit with a beer. What are we nuts? I gotta get hit with beer because of this guy. I'm sitting at the.
But it seems like with the Danny Jacobs fight, they had forgotten about that again.
You gotta be kidding me because of this guy.
Right, but he fought Danny Jacobs, and Chris, you were just nodding. He comes out, everybody's cheering, and the same thing happens.
Well,
he quits. People are
It's
throwing
the most
drinks.
ridiculous. That was the most ridiculous. He walks back to his corner and said, "Not fighting." And they were like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" He's like, "I broke my nose. I'm not fighting." I was like, "What? What are we doing?"
What about failed drug tests?
And then
check. Failed
yeah.
drug tests. Check. Missing weight. Check. Bro, what are we
Multiple
doing
times.
over here?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and then the fans went crazy in that one too. They started throwing, but their memories are so short because of his dad. It's just because of the name. That's what it is.
It's absolutely unbelievable. But
Just when you wanna think we have an intelligent fan base, they go and do something like this. You guys should be ashamed of this fight. You should be vocal about it. This is horrible. That's it. I'm done. All right.
Paulie,
my rant.
I love your energy. That's why you're here. We're giving you something else to be upset about. It's about fighter missing weight by over 6 pounds or 5% of what he was supposed to weigh when we come back.
Wednesday Night Fights. Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, July 31st, ProBox veterans Alberto Palmetta and Jesus Sriracha return to battle it out in the main event.
Welcome back to Deep Waters here on ProBox TV. You want to hear Paulie Malignaggi shout? You want to hear him get emotional? That's right, he will be ringside. Palmetta versus Sriracha, Argentina versus Mexico, July 31st. Don't miss Wednesday Night Fights on ProBox TV. Download the app. Don't miss a second of it. So, speaking of fighters that don't necessarily do their work, don't necessarily make weight, we have a big one. Junior bantamweight title challenger Jonathan Rodriguez of Mexico blew the weigh-in by 6.25 pounds for a 115-pound fight. Gentlemen, the lack of professionalism there, absolutely staggering. Did the math. That's over 5% of the weight he was supposed to weigh in. That's how much he missed by. Paulie, does it say to you something bad in the last couple weeks, or is it just a miss? Warrior Boxing, his promotional wing, dropped him today in a statement. What are your thoughts on it, Paulie?
I mean, you reap what you sow. Honestly, very important fight in your career, the World Championship,
Huge.
right? So huge opportunity. And at these lower weight classes, it's already hard enough to make a big name for yourself. So you got to at least start by getting that World Championship, performing. If you can grab a World Championship in those weight classes, we already have talked about how those guys all fight each other, so you can jump yourself in the money right away. I mean, talk about life-changing opportunities, life-changing moments, and showing up completely ill-prepared. Listen. If you show up 6 pounds and change overweight, I mean, you didn't even try enough. There are moments where, okay, I can't make the weight. But you blowing the weight by that much, you reap what you sow, bro. He got himself released from his contract, and now it's an uphill battle.
Jesse Rodriguez in that weight class is a very talented weight class. But the way I try to explain it to people, Chris, is making weight is like showing up to work on time. It's just the start of being a professional at all. Show up to work on time and be ready to go. If you don't do that, the rest of your career, you can't really be taken seriously. What's your thought on it?
Well, the way I thought about it, I think a lot of fighters do, is to fight before the fight. You got 2 fights. You got to win. You got to win the scale, and then you got to win the next night. Listen. I tip my hat to Warriors Boxing for having some conviction, showing some ethics and morals in a fight, in a sport that is unethical in most cases. So sticking to their guns, being like, all right, I'm done with this guy. I agree with that. 6 pounds over, 6.5 pounds over, whatever it is. I mean, you should have been contacting the promotion, your opponent, the week of, and be like, listen, we are nowhere near making this thing. Maybe we can work our catch weight out. Maybe we can cancel this, put it on another time. To show up and step on the scale, 6.5 pounds overweight, that's a slap in the face.
Showtime, you were we just talked about it, you were a big 147. You're a thick guy, very, very strong, but you always made the weight. When you see someone not do it, is it almost a slap in the face to the people who do it and actually make it and go through the effort? What's your thought?
I'm gonna give this guy a bone. This is what I think I know about those lower weight classes. It's not hard to make those weight classes. At those lower weights, your body is what it is. You're not extremely big and you're coming down. But in this guy's case, I think he's a bigger guy for 115 and he's trying to squeeze into 115 and just couldn't make it happen. That's what I got a feeling. I got a feeling he's taking advantage of that 24-hour weigh-in before you fight system. And he knows that he's going to be able to rehydrate, get himself back to feeling normal. And he's trying to squeeze into 115. I think he's bigger than that. And I think that it finally caught up with him.
Champ, you know what? You're making a point that's making me think now. This fight's in Japan. He's not from Japan. He had to fly over there. I still probably think he got on the plane way overweight to be able to still come in 6.5 pounds. But now, I would like to know how long before the weigh-in he got to Japan. That's a long flight. Sometimes those flights put a little bit of weight on you. I mean, still 6.5 pounds is way over the top. That means he was way over when he got on the plane. You have to at least you have to prepare for a long flight like that when you're making weight by getting your body a little lower than you should be at that point in camp. So that way, when you put a couple pounds back on during the flight, you have enough. You're still balancing it out.
Exactly what you're talking about is the problem. That shows professionalism. The going ahead with, all right, I got a flight. I know how flights work. I know what I'm getting in. I make sure I'm getting in at the right time so I can make the weight. I got to get it a little bit lower before I step on the scale, before I step on the plane, rather, before I get into the place where the fight's going to be or where the weigh-in's going to be.
That way, when you're in Japan, you're in striking distance of the weight. You can go back and make
That's
it.
professionalism. And when you step on a scale 6.5 pounds over, you're unprofessional.
Yeah, but here's the deal, Sean, is that what you're talking about, a little bit bigger, maybe mismanaged something late in the fight. 2 pounds, we'd be sitting there going, yeah, maybe it was a flight weight.
3 is crazy.
3's a lot.
Out of control.
6.25 is unbelievable at this weight class. What's your thought on just the amount? I mean, that says a lot.
That's why I've derived to the conclusion that he's probably just a bigger kid. Should probably be fighting at 22 opposed to fighting at 115. Probably cutting to get to 22, and he's trying to cut to get to 15 just so that he can have that size advantage. And it finally caught up with him. It took him going overseas, not having the stability and the timing that he usually has to do what he does. To me, that's weight manipulation, and this is weight management 101, where we see how it could work against you, but also we can see that guys do manipulate their bodies into getting to these lower weights just so that they can have a size advantage on fight night. It caught up to him.
I mean, dude, now Vegas does 9 a.m. the day before the fight. That's crazy. You know what I mean?
I know.
You're making it worse and worse. They have an official weigh-in at 9 a.m. in the morning, and then they have the public weigh-in at 1 o'clock where the public thinks that the weigh-in's happening. They already weighed in 8 hours before. You're only going to see more of this manipulation with these ridiculous rules that they've implemented.
With my weigh-ins, I cut a lot of weight too, but I always felt like I was back to life the night of the weigh-in. So I always felt like I could fight the night I weighed in. That's how my body felt. And if I ever felt like it was not that case, then I was in the wrong weight class. So you were an professional.
You were an absolute consummate professional, not just in fighting, but also on the desk. And that, in fact, he's going to be here Monday, just like he is Monday through Friday here on ProBox TV, Deep Waters. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for joining us.